questions. Okay,
Where we are now.
so we were near the bottom of page 2. Real Estate Agents Act, Lawyers and Conveyancers Act, restrictions and implications placed on you as a new salesperson. Okay. Right, when you come into this business, what is your stand down period before you can do a sale?
6 months.
Yourself?
6 months. 6
Okay.
months.
So what has to happen during that 6 months?
You must have I think the branch manager or another licensed salesperson with you when you do the purchase.
Can't sign any agreement.
Okay,
You can't
right.
So you
sign-
cannot.
Okay, you can't sign the agreement anyway. Right.
Oh,
Remember,
how are you going to get paid?
the restriction is around sale and purchase agreements. So you can list properties for sale, you can do all the marketing, you do all the open homes, you do all that stuff, you take the purchasers to the property, you tell them how wonderful the property is, you do all of that stuff. But when it gets to the point where the purchaser wants to make an offer, yeah, go on.
You're not allowed to write up the contract.
That's right, you can't, not only are you not allowed to write it up, you can't have any input in it. You can't make any suggestions. Yeah, I think you should have this clause or that clause. Yeah, okay. Gets to the point where the purchaser wants to make an offer, somebody else is going to take over. And typically that will be the agent licensee or the branch manager in most cases. It's possible they might delegate it to a particularly experienced salesperson, yeah, and get them to take it over. But the point is you can't do it, yeah? You just have to be there, watch and learn, and you just sit there with your mouth shut and watch what goes on.
But do we get the commission as if it
That's
was-
up to your
Yeah.
company, I can't answer that.
You're going to discuss it with your.
Yeah, okay. Typically your agency will pay you all of the fee,
good,
yeah?
good, very good.
Because the manager or whoever it is going to get their cut anyway as part of their remuneration package.
Right.
But, yeah, but it's something that needs to be clarified with your agency. There's no rule, there's no law that says what it has to be.
Okay.
So was that another question?
Okay.
Is that just for the agency agreement or is that for the sale purchase agreement?
No, that's only for the sale and purchase agreement.
Oh.
So you can list properties for sale, no problem at all.
No worries.
Yeah, so you can list them for sale, but you can't do the sale and purchase agreement.
Can you do the agency agreement?
Yes. Your only restriction is the sale and purchase agreement. Remember, and that's off the dial for
You can,
6 months.
you can do the agency agreement and everything.
Oh.
Okay.
I asked.
Conditions, it's on the bottom of the page now.
Mhm.
Conditions and contracts, obligations of the parties and salesperson. Okay. Customers' obligations to attempt to fulfill conditions. Okay. All right. Could a buyer try and wriggle out of a contract by failing to meet one of their obligations? If they have an obligation, for example, to go and source a loan or to sell their own property, could they try and wriggle out of the contract by not doing that?
No.
No, okay. Because very clearly everybody has an absolute obligation to do or to make an honest attempt to do whatever it is the contract says. You've signed up a contract that says you're going to do something, so you have to do it. Yeah, you can't wriggle out of the contract by failing to do it. Okay. Salesperson's obligations to disclose defects. Right. What would happen if the vendor said to you, yes, this sucker leaks, but don't you dare tell the purchasers?
Walk out of the contract.
You have to walk away. Yes, okay, right. What rule says that, by the way?
No, not fiduciary, it's not fiduciary. Don't ask me about sections.
Is the rule 10?
Yeah.
10.7.
Close,
10.8.
10.8.
10.8.
Yep, okay. All right. Okay.
That
Let's
is what
talk
is
about
last
10.7.
answer.
10.7 is also in here, your obligation to disclose defects. Yes, okay. So, if you know there is something wrong with the property, yeah, we talked about potential defects, so you see cracks in walls, you see whatever it happens to be, you have an obligation to disclose them. Yeah, okay. But remember also we talked about hidden defects. You might look at a property when you go and visit it, it turns out it's plaster clad, it's got a flat roof, it's got no eaves, and it was built in 1997. Yeah, it's got Leaker written all over it. Yeah, okay. but you don't know whether it's leaking or not. You have a very clear obligation to say to the potential purchaser that it exhibits the characteristics of a leaky home. Yeah, so you make a recommendation to the purchaser that they seek their own independent specialist report to get it checked out. All good? Okay. Conflict of interest when buying a property where the vendor is the client, procedure and all steps involved in the process. Okay, so you've listed a property for sale and you think, yeah, okay, quite like this one, I would like to buy it myself. Step me through the process. What's the first thing that happens?
You have to tell the customer, tell the vendor
Yeah.
that this property.
What do you get from the vendor?
Consent from the.
Consent.
Vendor's consent, okay. On what?
So purchase the property.
purchase.
You have to get a independent,
Yeah, no,
valuation.
what do you get the consent on? There's a particular form.
Form 2.
Form 2, yes, okay, right. So you get the vendors, you get the vendor's consent on Form 2, all right. Once you've got the vendor's consent, you can go down 2 different tracks, okay. You've got the vendor's consent, let's say you now do a sale and purchase agreement and you agree a price with the vendor, okay. What happens next?
Independent valuation.
You're right, you get a registered valuation. How long have you got to do that? 14 days, yes, registered valuation in 14 days. Okay. What would happen if the valuer put a higher value on the property than the price that you'd agreed?
They can withdraw the vendor can cancel.
The vendor can cancel, the vendor can walk away. Yeah, okay. The process can of course play out in reverse. You can get the vendor's consent on Form 2. You could then go straight to valuation and then do the sale and purchase agreement afterwards. Okay. What would happen if you were to sidestep this process? You list the property for sale and then you just go and buy it.
That's
What would be
big
the
trouble.
likely outcome?
This is big trouble. License
trouble,
could
yes.
be cancelled. License could be cancelled.
Okay, you could lose your license, yes, okay. So all the disciplinary process would play out. There'd be a complaint to the real estate authority, it'd go to the CAC tribunal, yeah, all that disciplinary machinery would play out. And the client, the vendor, would not have to pay any fees. Okay, all good?
Yeah, okay.
All right. What else have we got in here? Oh, next page, Overseas Investment Act. Right, okay. Right. First point, how it might apply to a real estate transaction. Yeah, not very helpful, is it? Okay.
This is what I was confused.
How it would impact is that the buyers might well need OIA consent, yes, from the Overseas Investment Office. Let's talk about the buyers. What is it that makes a buyer an overseas buyer? What's the definition?
From overseas.
From overseas. Okay, I'm from overseas. I was born in London. Does that make me an overseas buyer?
No, maybe
No.
someone is not living in New Zealand, not living in New Zealand.
Not carrying a passport.
Karen Twas-
New Zealand passport. Or resident.
You're almost there, okay. Somebody who is not a New Zealand citizen or resident.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Somebody who's not in New Zealand, doesn't matter where they were born, it's at the time of this transaction, somebody who's neither a New Zealand citizen nor a New Zealand resident, by default, is going to be an overseas purchaser. Yeah, okay. There are also rules around, and we did look at them in your law books, about companies, and it's to do with the share capital of the companies, who owns what. Now, if a company is more than 25% owned offshore, they become an overseas buyer. Yeah.
Can you repeat that once again?
If a company is more than 25% overseas owned, they become an overseas buyer. Okay. What clause in the sale and purchase agreement covers off the Overseas Investment Act? What clause? I'm looking for a clause number. Sorry?
10.4.
10.4, yeah, bang on.
Hang on.
Right, 10.4, because it's on the front page of the agreements. Yes, okay.
Good man.
Well done, yes, well spotted, yeah, okay. Usually everybody says, what? Okay, yeah, 10.4, it's on the front page of the agreement. Okay. This next bullet point, okay. Details to do with land sizes that might apply when selling rural properties, waterfront properties, properties that extend to the foreshore, also properties that border the public walkway, sometimes known as the Queen's Chain, and properties on offshore islands. Okay, right.
We have never discussed that.
Okay. What's the cutoff point for rural properties?
No.
10.
No, that is not been, even I don't have
Oh, dear.
that.
Okay, all right. Rural properties, the cutoff point is 5 hectares. 5 hectares. What's the cutoff for waterfront property? So that's beachfront or clifftop, anything that's waterfront. What's the cutoff? Please never talk acres, all right? Acres are gone.
It's 4 meters, no?
No.
No, 4 meters.
No,
Oh,
something.
you haven't done very well on this bit. Okay, all right. 2,000 square meters. Yeah, you'll need to memorize this.
2,000, yes.
Yeah.
5 and 2,000.
Yeah, okay. Waterfront properties, so, yeah, it could be beachfront, it could be cliff top, whatever, something's on the waterfront, 2,000 square meters.
Check the course book.
2,000.
Okay. In your course books, sorry, in your law books rather, we went through a list of specified islands in that schedule, and there were places like Cowo Island and Great Barrier and what else was on there, Waiheke and so forth. Okay. What's the cutoff for land on those islands? Not waterfront, just other land on those islands.
6 hectares.
No.
I'm guessing. 4,000 square meters. You need to remember this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Overseas
Well,
buyer
that's
wants to
2000.
buy a business. What's the cutoff for the business in terms of value?
$100 million.
100 million, yes. 100 million. If the property you're selling is adjacent to, we'll say a walkway along a cliff top, what would that cutoff be?
No idea.
Sorry, how much?
No idea.
No idea. Right, that's the C.
Lift up.
That's the cliff. This property here, the cutoff is how much?
2,000.
2,000 meters waterfront, right?
Square.
This one is 2,000
square.
square meters. What's this one? 4. 4,000 square meters. Right, there's no way around this, you just have to memorize the stuff.
Was it 6,000?
No, these are separate properties, don't add them together.
Oh.
Okay.
Cliff.
Along the cliff top, there might be a road. Yeah, that runs along the cliff top. Might be a road, there might be a public reserve, there might be a walkway, yeah, whatever it happens to be. Yeah, runs along the cliff top. The property that adjoins that one, yeah, that adjoins the walkway, the road, whatever it happens to be, the cutoff point for that one is 4,000 square meters. Yeah? Okay.
So is the 2,000 how far the walkway or whatever needs to be?
The 2,000 square meters, that's the cutoff point, that's the size of the site.
How big is the site?
Yeah, okay, this one's 2,000 square meters, this one's 4,000 square meters. So if you're selling a section that's on a cliff top or it's beachfront, yeah, the cutoff is 2,000 square meters. Anything more than that and your overseas buyer wants to buy it, they've got to jump through the hoops and get consent.
4,000
After s-
meters. Just a
sorry?
second, what are the 4,000 meters? Which area you were specifying?
Yeah.
Okay, this next property back here, now, right, between the cliff.
And the
this
first
one-
house,
yeah,
first house.
This one, the cutoff is 2,000 square metres.
Okay.
So anything greater than that is going to need OIA consent.
Okay.
Less
okay.
than that, it's fine.
Okay,
Okay?
fine.
This property, the cutoff is 4,000 square metres, so greater than that requires OIA consent.
Okay.
So basically, the first property gets built within that 2,000
Square meters?
Yeah.
The one behind it becomes 4,000, and then it carries on.
Yeah, then it's normal from there on
It's
in.
normal.
So the cliff top has to have a 2,000 square meters distance for the first cliff house top?
Well, that's the size of the site. It's square metres, it's not a distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the distance, that's the size of
It's
the
square metres, it's the
property.
size of the site.
So
Square metres.
what is the distance from the cliff top for the first property to be built? What's the gap?
It doesn't say, it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. So the first property from the cliff top has to be 2,000 meters, square meters?
Square metres, that's
The
the
one behind
size.
it can be 4,000?
Correct.
More or not?
Well, that's the cutoff point for the Overseas Investment Act.
So if it's more, then it's okay? For the property that's behind it?
It can be more, as in cut off.
If it's more than that, you need
So that's
consent.
the cutoff range?
That's the
And it
cutoff.
becomes sensitive land after that, or not? That's different?
Yeah, okay. If it's greater than that, it's sensitive land, that meets the definition.
that's
Yep,
okay, perfect.
okay.
That's what I was confused about
Okay.
the whole thing. Because I thought the first property is 2,000 meters and the second one is
Okay.
4,000. I said it's confusing.
Okay, let's keep going. After sales service, right. All right, after sales service. Helping the purchaser and client to fulfill conditions in the contract prior to settlement. Okay, all right. So you sign up a sale and purchase agreement, it's all done, sale and purchase agreement's done. The very worst thing you can do is put it in a drawer and hope something happens, because it won't. Yeah, okay. You need to follow up with both sides to make sure they do what they're supposed to do. Okay, right. So we sign up a sale and purchase agreement today, and let's say it's subject to a limb. So purchaser's got 5 working days in which to order the limb. Yeah, okay. So today's a Friday, so we start counting on Monday. So we would go to the purchaser on Monday. Okay, the clock started ticking now. You've got 5 working days to order a limb, so you need to get onto it, get that underway. You need to make sure you've got your application into bank for finance and so forth. You need to chase people up, make sure they do what they're supposed to be doing. Otherwise, they just won't. Yeah, okay. So you need to do that both sides, purchaser and vendor. There could be some things that the vendors agreed to do. Yeah, maybe the vendors agreed to carry out some repairs to the property, for example. Yeah, okay. So you need to follow them both up, make sure they're doing what they've said they will do, but you also need to make sure you keep the other side informed. Yeah. So you would contact the purchaser. Okay, the clock started ticking. You need to make an appointment, go and talk to your bank, get this mortgage application underway. Purchaser says, yes, fine, I've already done that. I've got an appointment this afternoon, 2 o'clock. Great. I can now phone the vendor and say, I've just been speaking with the purchaser. Finance application's underway. He's meeting with the bank later today. Now, everybody's in the loop. Everybody knows. Yeah, all good?
So we have to keep everybody on
Yeah.
their toe, as I say.
Yeah, you've got to keep massaging this process all the way through. All right. Customers' rights of inspection under clause 3.2 in the sale and purchase agreement. What on earth's that? No idea.
Where that come from?
No idea. Okay.
3.2.
Right. This is the final inspection clause. Right. The purchaser has a perfect right to go and inspect the property one final time before it settles. Yep, okay. So typically it's done 1 or maybe 2 days before the actual settlement date. Purchaser has a perfect right to go to the property and check it out. Okay, make sure that nothing has changed since they actually did the deal. They have a perfect right, for example, to go around, open and close all the doors, all the windows. Yeah, make sure they work. Turn on all the taps, flush all the toilets. If there's appliances being sold, if there's a dishwasher being sold, they have a perfect right to turn it on and make sure it works. I can't remember if I told you before, but I did a final inspection. I did a final inspection with a purchaser, and he showed up with a length of electrical cable, and it had a light bulb on one end and a plug on the other. Yeah, and he went round every single socket in the house, every single one, yeah, to make sure they all worked. Yeah, bit over the top, but he's legally entitled to do it. Yeah, so purchaser has every right to say, turn on all the taps, flush all the toilets, open and close all the doors and windows, flick all the light switches, make sure everything in fact works. Perfect right to do that. I know this is going to sound extreme, but it's true. About 2 years ago. 2 years ago, a student came through this class, and her hobby, her passion, outside of her work was baking. Yeah, she used to bake all kinds of fancy exotic things. That was her big interest, that's what she did. And when she went to do a final inspection for the property, this is the way she explained it to the class, she said she took a cake mix. She took a raw cake mix to this house, yeah, put it in the oven and turn it on and make sure that it heated up to the right temperature and cooked the particular cake the way that she wanted. Yeah, it was a student in the class, that's the way she told it, yeah. Yeah, I thought it was really over the top, but yeah, that's what she said she did.
So in a case where those minor defects in the property are like the light switch isn't working, or
You can ask to
You
repair
can
it.
ask for.
the tab isn't working properly,
Yeah.
that,
Okay.
that is not good enough to cancel the contract, is it?
No, it's not, but you need to get on top of that stuff and get it fixed. So you're typically probably 2 days away from settlement now. So
If the vendor doesn't fix the issue before the settlement date, would the 14% annum penalty apply?
no, that's for late settlement.
No.
No, that's late settlement, okay, no. Okay, what should happen for this final inspection? Firstly, you need to be there. Yeah, because remember, you've got access to the property, you've got the key, the burglar alarm code, etc., etc. Whatever you do, do not send the purchaser there on their own, yeah? Don't let them go and meet the vendor, yeah, all right? It cause all sorts of troubles, okay. You make sure you go there, you facilitate the process, you walk around the house with them. So you need to facilitate it, and in the event that there is something wrong, they discover a defective light switch or something, if you're there, then you can get onto it straight away. Yeah, okay. You need to get a hold of the vendor and say, look, there's a problem here, you know, a tap doesn't work or the lights don't work or whatever it is, and you need to get a plumber, an electrician, whatever around here today, yeah, get it fixed. Yeah, because if it's not fixed, then the purchaser, okay, it gets complicated. The purchaser's going to talk to their lawyer and say that such and such doesn't work, and then the purchaser's lawyer is going to say, well, we need to withhold some money. Yeah, so rather than settle at $900,000 on this house, we're not going to settle at $900,000. We're going to withhold maybe $1,000, yeah, against this whatever it is being fixed. Okay. Now, if they do that and the price is reduced, so they actually change the price on the contract, so if the contract price is reduced, you'll impress your assessors if you tell them this. It's called an equitable set-off. Yeah, you don't have to, it's not compulsory if you can't remember. It's called an equitable set-off. That's where the lawyers, make it up, right? That's where the lawyers between them actually reduce the contract price, or they amend the contract price, okay. So to come back, so the purchaser has a perfect right, inspect the property, they can walk all around it, make sure everything works, and your role in the process to make sure, of course, it all does. Okay. After sales service, okay. So you've sold the property,
Look for
it
more
settles
property.
today. Yeah, today's the big day, the old owner's going to move out, the new owner's going to move in. What are you going to do today? This is settlement day. Okay,
Hand over
okay,
the keys.
right. The key has to be handed over, and your officers will all have various policies about how you deal with that. I think the worst thing you can do is say, okay, well, the keys are in the office, pick them up anytime you like.
No.
No, that's just tacky, yeah, okay, all right. I think at the very least you have to be there to hand over the key. So a few weeks back now, my daughter bought a property, and when the salesperson showed up to give her the key, and the key arrives in a fancy little box. Yeah, it's all tied up with ribbons and what have you. Okay, so she actually purchased it through a Ray White office, and when they got to the house, there's a big yellow ribbon and a bow and so forth around the front door, all in Ray White colours, and big card, welcome to your new home, and all that kind of stuff.
Champagne or.
Yeah, okay. As you say, champagne. Okay, right.
What's cheap wine?
Settlement date, gifts to both sides are customary. Yeah,
a
again,
whiskey.
not compulsory by any means, but certainly customary. Yeah, it is normal to give something to the purchaser, something to the vendor, just a celebration. Yeah, okay. All right. So typically you would do that on settlement day. After sales service, remember, you're going to want further business out of both these parties, yeah? Assuming, of course, everybody is now happy with you because you facilitated this process.
Give the keys and ask when you're going to sell it again.
You have a new house?
It's not quite as blunt as that, but that's kind of on the track, yes, okay.
That's how I'm giving the champagne.
Okay, right, I'm on there, smashed you sign up the listing here.
I didn't think of that.
No, okay. Okay, right. You want business from both parties going forward. How are you going to achieve that? You've got to make sure you've got both sides on your database. Yeah, okay. So everybody's got to be on your database. You've got to keep in touch with them going forward. And I would suggest probably every 3 months or so, you're going to send them updates. What's happening in the local property market just helps to keep your name top of mind. You send them updates. Things like, okay, Christmas cards, birthday cards, those sorts of things. Anniversary cards, yeah, anniversary of the day they bought the property. Yeah, so congratulations, you've now been in your new home for a year. Yeah, hope everything's well, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, sign it off. Next year, of course, you've now been in your home for 2 years. Yeah, hope everything's going well, blah, blah, blah. You've now been in your home for 3 years. Yeah, and so it goes on. Okay. So,
What was striking me is that, Gary, sometimes, it's just a phone call.
Yeah.
He will make a call to a customer or a vendor, and immediately he will send a very nice email.
Yeah.
He will get your email address, he send you a very nice email presenting himself formally.
Yeah.
You know, that I'm Gary Key, I have this, and he will say, okay, we discussed on the phone, and he just very nice. And surprisingly, he will get a call after a few days.
Yeah.
That person will say, okay, I have a property just because of the email.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
amazing how he does it.
It's just massaging that relationship all the time, massaging that relationship. Okay, so you need to get these people on your database. You're going to follow up with cards, with letters, with emails, all of those sorts of things. Right. Payment of deposit. All right, we talked about that. We talked about the sale and purchase agreements. Remember, it's your responsibility to collect the deposit. Remember, if it's upon acceptance, then it's due straight away. If the deposit is due when the deal becomes unconditional, clearly you track that through your system, through whatever planner or diary system, whatever it is you have. You know when it's scheduled to become unconditional, therefore you know when you need to contact the purchaser again to collect the deposit. Keys and security devices, again, keys, burglar alarm codes, all those sorts of things. You need to get from the outgoing owner, and in many cases there's a front door key. Who's got one? You know, Mr. Whoever has got one, Mrs. Whoever has got one, several of the kids have got one each. Yeah, okay. So round up as many of the keys as you possibly can. Things like the remotes for the garage door, all those sorts of things. Collect all of that stuff from the outgoing owners so you can give it to the incoming owners. Things like burglar alarm codes. You want to make a suggestion to the incoming owner that they might like to change the burglar alarm code, because clearly the outgoing owner knows what it was. Yeah, and how far and wide that information has gone, who knows? So they might want to think about checking it out and getting it changed.
You suggest that?
Yeah,
Give them the keys back? The locks back?
it's often not a bad idea. It doesn't cost very much.
Yep.
Doesn't cost very much to get locks changed. Just change the barrel in the lock. It's not a big deal. You never know who might have keys. Misleading and deceptive conduct. Implications of, right, okay. Misleading and deceptive conduct. How would that be perceived under the real estate disciplinary process? Misleading and deceptive conduct. Is that unsatisfactory conduct? Is that misconduct?
Misconduct.
Okay, right. Under the Fair Trading Act, what would be the penalties for misleading and deceptive conduct under the Fair Trading Act?
$200,000? $200,000?
Under the Fair Trading Act,
Oh.
no, not real estate, under the Fair
Okay,
Trading Act,
20,000.
misleading and deceptive conduct is Section 9. Yeah, what are the penalties for breaches of Section 9?
Compensation.
Penalties, what are the penalties for breaches of Section 9?
40.
No, you're all guessing. Unlimited. Misleading and deceptive conduct, yeah? Okay, the penalties are unlimited. Providing false information or withholding information.
Section 9 too.
Just Section 9.
9.
Section 9 is misleading and deceptive conduct generally. Providing false information or withholding information. Okay. Again, depending on what the information was, that could be unsatisfactory conduct, it could be misconduct, most likely to be misconduct. If that goes through the disciplinary process, misconduct, you're going to wind up with the tribunal. What are the penalties that you as a salesperson could face at the tribunal?
7 years.
The license will be withdrawn.
Okay, so it could be loss of license, could be loss of license, could be suspension of license, could be undergo further training. Let's not just talk about penalties for the moment. Penalty could be for an individual, $15,000, for a company, $30,000. You might have to pay compensation. Compensation is not a penalty, it's compensation, it's damages, up to $100,000. Yeah, remember all that was in that first unit? 6 weeks ago. A lifetime back, isn't it? Okay. All right. Lastly, rules 10.7 and 10.8 we've already discussed. Remember 10.7 was disclosure of defects. 10.8 was your obligation to walk away. Yeah, if you're instructed to break the law, you're instructed to withhold the information or walk away.
Sale and purchase agreement.
Okay, all good?
Yep.
Yep, all right. Okay. All right, we've got an hour and a bit left. I think we should do some more practices. Right. Are there any more questions? If not, we'll do some practice.
They're going to go through their contracts, then they're going to just have a separate part of it.
Nothing
Okay,
Practice
your
again.
your assessor will do the questions first. Okay, so you'll meet with the assessor, they'll run through the questions first. Okay, you guys like to join us, please? Okay, they'll run through the questions first. In the event that you don't get through the questions, then they won't take it any further. Yeah, because there's just no point in doing the rest of the assessment. Yeah, so they'll do the questions first, then they'll move into the sale and purchase agreement, and then those last points that I mentioned about after-sale service and so forth, and final inspections, they will ask those sorts of questions at the end. Yeah, so you've got all the general questions up front, then you do the role play on the sale and purchase agreement, then the things that relate to after-sale service, after the signature of the agreement, will come up at the end. So the whole process is roughly an hour. All good?
Good.
All good now.
No, apparently.
Let's go.
Yep.
I'm just
Wait,
trying to
wait.
put how the first one
He's
after
giving
sales
good
goes,
information
how-
when he's finished
how
with
the-
it.
Oh, there's no information. He's going to practice again.
Yes.
Why is it after sales service or it's prior?
I don't know what, I don't know. I would put, it's after in the sense that it's after the contract is signed. Yeah, but it's not actually after the sale is complete. Yeah. Okay, all good? All right. You'd like to organise yourselves, please, into groups of 3, and I'll give you some sale and purchase agreements, and away you go.
Tell him to give us 2, because tell him we're going to do this outside of 2. Tell him to give 2.
Yeah, to get the forms, right? You get the
To give
forms.
sales and purchase, but we're doing outside.
Perhaps we can smash it. And then you will show
We'll organise that. Okay.
tomorrow.
Okay, so please, into groups of 3, but try not to work with people you've worked with before, all right? Try and mix it up a bit, yeah? Otherwise you get into a habit of just working with the same people, yeah? So try and mix up the groups a bit. All right.